Hi, I'm Yashi. Welcome to podcast Women in Business. To give a little background about myself, I run a franchisee of Bodycraft Salon and Spa in Bangalore, India. So before coming into this business, I used to work in software industry. I took a long break to take care of my children, and after the break I did not want to go back to software industry. I always wanted to start something on my own, and that's when I came about starting this franchisee of Bodycraft Salon and Spa. While I was getting into the business, I had no idea that I would be learning so much, not just about the business, but about myself too. There'll be so many challenges that we come across, and there'll be so many self doubts, those little ways that come across that nobody really talks about. So, this made me wonder there'll be so many women who's going through the same thing. And that's when I came about starting this podcast. I wanted to create a space, or rather, an honest space where we talk about the ups and downs of starting a business or starting something from the scratch. So it's not always about the success stories, but it's about the real journey. The real journey is, of course, the ideas, the motivation, the fears, the self doubt, the learning curves, and the resilience it takes to keep it going. So, in each episode, I sit down with women who are at different stages of their business journey. Some are just starting, and some are at it for a while. But whatever it is, they all have very important lessons to share with us. If you are someone who have dreamt of starting something on your own, or you're already on that path and just want to hear from women who are already treading that path, then this podcast is for you. This is Women in Business. Today, I'm joined by Arpita Ganesh, a seasoned entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience. She has founded and led 3 successful companies and all in different industries. Today, we'll be focusing on her latest venture, The Bar, a vibrant restaurant located right here in Whitefield, Bangalore. So we'll talk about what inspired her to open a restaurant, what challenges she faced, and what it really takes to run a restaurant today. Hi, Arpita.
Hi,
Thank you for joining us.
thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you. So, Arpita, what inspired you to, I know your background from where you've been. What inspired you to come into a food space?
So I think I go after my passions. I think my first business, the lingerie one, Buttercups, was, because I couldn't find good bras in India. So that's what helped me to start Buttercups. The second was during COVID, no good food for my pets. So I started fresh pet food business called Perfectly Made. Again, pets are passion. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, liquor and good beer are passion. So once I sold Perfectly, I was like, okay, what's next? And there's one more passion left, which is the good beer and good drink passion. So that's what drove me to open a bar and a craft beer tap room more than anything else. I think that's what I wanted, to get all of Bangalore's good beers to Whitefield so that I didn't have to travel. Yeah, so that's what drove me. And I think the F&B, there is still space for a lot of people to come in, a lot of people to grow. Whitefield did not have that many places when we opened up about a year and a half back. Now we have plenty, but yeah, I also wanted a place that was a comfortable place. I think most places that I would head out to were more skewed towards the younger generation. Very few that were skewed towards, an older generation like mine, which likes quieter places, more aesthetic, not too much noise, great drinks, great food. So I was kind of trying to open a place where I would want to go. And that's what led to the bar.
Oh, lovely. But did you have any experience with this?
So I have, it's a full circle for me. I started out studying hotel management.
Okay.
I have a degree in hotel management. I started my career in ITC Grand Kakatiya, Hyderabad. Pre-opening stages. I used to be in the banquets there for a few years. But then I left the industry in 1997, moved to advertising then. And now I'm back here. So it's been a full circle.
Okay.
Back to hospitality. But hospitality has changed quite a bit from the 90s to now. I think couple of things that, are very glaringly different is that the generation that we were, the amount of commitment we had towards our work versus the amount of commitment you see from, people who work with you today is very different. I don't think it's only an hospitality problem. It's a world over problem. But yes, I think the amount of formality that used to be there in hospitality when we were working there doesn't exist anymore. I think this generation is very casual about hospitality, not as formal as we were about hospitality.
You're saying it has applied to all the fields.
Like I said,
That's totally a different segment for me then.
Don't call me for that one. There'll be too much I'll have to say.
Maybe you won't be able to stop.
No, that's the whole problem. But it's changed quite a bit. Even I think from a consumption point of view, what people expected then and what people expect now is very different. I think people are comfortable now with a less formal way of working. Whereas I think when in the early 90s, people wanted a more formal and they went out. Even the way people dress to go out for dinner and lunches has changed, right? So I think, because it's become a little more informal.
Thing that you say is like, this is more, you're saying we are more casual now?
We're much more casual now. We're much more easier now on both sides, right? We're not stiff upper lip and, sir, madam. That slightly seems to have gone out the window. While hospitality still continues to be where you want to make people comfortable, I think they want to feel more at home versus in a more formal environment. Earlier it used to be, we should be treated with formality. Now I think it's more, make it comfortable so I feel at home.
Yeah. So I can come more often.
More often, yes.
So what was your day one like,
I don't know what is day one, whether it was starting to raise money to start the place, whether it was putting that first brick to, start work in the place, or whether it was opening doors.
Let's say opening the doors.
Okay, opening the doors. A lot of anxiety, obviously. But luckily, we're inside an IT park, so we knew at least a few people will come because they'd been seeing the place come up. So, keeping the doors open. But I think the first few people coming and telling us our food is good, they love the ambience. I think that evening we had a bunch of people because we had sent out messages and, people wanted to come and see. I think just that evening of seeing that everything was running well. I mean, there was obviously first 1 week there was chaos in the back end, but that chaos didn't come to the front, right? The guests didn't know that there was chaos in the back end. But the fact that it all went off smoothly in the front end, I think that was very satisfactory.
You must be having jitters, right?
A lot of jitters, don't ask. And you can't show your jitters, right? You've got a team of 30, 40 people working under you. You show the jitters, they're showing the jitters. So you have to be all calm and patient and say, okay, it's all going to go well. So you pass your calmness on to them.
Yeah, that's a true, I think that's a true leadership. Yeah, that's important.
Tough one to pull off, but you have to. Right. So that's what day one was like. I think every day is a new challenge in hospitality. Every day there's new thing to overcome. But I think that's with every business. We all have every day something will come up, something will happen.
It never goes.
You're fighting every day.
In hospitality industry, I feel attrition is a big issue. Right? How do you handle this staff turnover and how do you retain them?
So I think that was one of the other changes that has come in hospitality. When we were there, I think people we worked with are still in the same hotels, moved up the ranks, become managers, become vice presidents. I think, like you said, iteration today, I was not ready for. So in my first month, the day I paid, and we come from a different, I've not been in hospitality for so long, so I didn't know the rules and norms, right? We paid the salary and next day, 22 people didn't turn up.
Oh.
Out of 45 people. right?
Okay.
Can you imagine next day coming to work and seeing, okay, this, and they all switch off their phones or they block you off. So you can't even get in touch with them.
So this is after you paid them.
This is the day they get their salaries, the next day they disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it was a nightmare the first month. And then from the next month onwards, we knew it's going to happen. So we were ready for it.
So how do we ready? So you're going to hire more and...
So you kept hiring and you hired far more people than you needed. But what happens is that I think somewhere along the line, you start picking people you know who are going to stick around because they want to build careers. 1 out of 100, that is.
Oh my
I'm not
God.
kidding. It's 1 out of 100 that come because they believe that they want to stick around and build a business, build a brand with you because they see potential of growth for themselves. The others are there. This month, if someone's giving me 10 rupees extra, I will move there. Right. And that's a very, very, very terrible culture to bring in. We are, as a restaurant association, we're trying to curb that culture because all of us suffer from it.
Yeah, that is...
And we must stop it at some point because otherwise none of us are going to be able to build great team. But touch wood, now I think about 8 months into the business, the iteration finally stopped. Right? We probably lose one person or 2 people. Like I said, I think we started picking people, asking them the right questions. When you ask them that, okay, where do you see yourself in 6 months? If they say here only, you know that you're not. When someone says in 6 months, I should be a floor manager or I should move up. Right? Ma'am, I want to do this, right? And in the first month itself, you will be able to make out whether it's taking initiative, taking responsibility, feeling like a family, or they're just coming, doing their job and going. So then you know that that person who's coming and going, now we've become smarter. Now we'll tell them to go before they go away.
Oh, you are not in for a surprise?
No, I am not in for a surprise, right? And I'm not paying somebody who's not bought into the business, right? And we have given a lot of growth for a lot of people who have stuck around. We've given 2 promotions in 1 year, right? Because that person has proved themselves over and over that they can take responsibility, they can grow. And growing people who take responsibility makes them feel like they're a part of a place, right? Because they're seeing they're seeing that they're growing because they're taking initiative. So they take little more initiative, right? So that's how we have started to retain people. I think sieving channi ke tarah hai bilkul. You have to just sieve and the good stuff will stay.
Yeah, but how many of them will really stay? But then
so right now I have a team of 60,
hiring keep going.
I have a team of 65 people, of which I would say 80% have stuck on for more than 6 months.
That's a good
And that's a big one. Yeah. That's a really big one.
Yeah. That is something.
So there are 2 departments where we still need to focus, but it'll happen. It'll happen. I think once people realize you're also in for the long term, right? With the number of places opening up, with the number of people being hired, I think they are also looking for a place where they feel they belong. Like at least some of them are. Right? It's not like just a job, come and do it because the money comes into the bank. For them it is, yes, somewhere there's seriousness of, I have to build my career, I have to do good things, I have to grow. So for them, a smaller place becomes easier to grow versus a place which has, let's say, 200 people, 300 people. For them to shine in a place like that is tough. Whereas in a 60, 70 people place, for them to shine.
Oh, that's like a small number you're saying. Oh.
I have a 250 seater. Most of your breweries are 1,000 seaters.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So it's a small place. Not by my standards. By my standards, I was like, I should have done a 20 people place. Then if no one turned up also, I could run it.
Do you cook?
Yes.
You do?
I do, but I don't cook in my restaurant. I do. I love cooking. I haven't cooked in a long while. In fact, I think when I took up hotel management, I hoped to be a chef, but that never happened.
Okay. So in fact, I had this question in my list.
Yeah.
For later time.
Yeah.
But anyway, my question was, so everybody can cook. At least most of them can
Yes,
cook.
yes. Now everyone can cook. You
Yeah.
have so many videos.
Let's keep it as most of them can cook. But can anybody open, everybody open a restaurant?
No. Even me, with all my years of experience, I am struggling, right? This is one of the most challenging business. Of course, lingerie was much more challenging than this. Let me put it like that.
Okay.
But this is also a very challenging business because it's not one department or two departments like you deal with or three departments. You deal with 10 different departments, with 10 different kinds of people that you, like your kitchen staff is very different from your service staff. Your housekeeping staff is very different from your kitchen and your service staff. Your marketing team is very different on a very different level from, your other staff. Your admin team, your accounts team is very different, right? You're dealing with people on a constant level, and when you're dealing with so many people, everyone comes with their own problems and everyone comes with their own quirks, and you have to manage to keep everyone happy. So that's I think one of the challenges, and besides that, everyone has to work towards keeping the guest happy. No bad reviews.
Yeah.
Right? So this is while people believe that if you can cook, you should open restaurants, I think you should sit back and take a look because it's just not easy, right? It takes so many moving parts to actually put that dish in front of you and to put that good beverage and food in front of you, which you don't know how many 10 things have gone behind, right, of doing that. But that said, that the energy of doing so much is what keeps you going. So if you like to be in a high energy environment, this is the place.
I think all the days you have.
Yeah. There is no day off, there isn't. But there is something happening, something new. So once I walk into the restaurant in the morning at 10, till I get out of it at about, nowadays at least I get out at about 6, 7 because, now things are a little more set. Earlier it used to be 10 to 10, right, in the beginning. There is not a minute where you're just sitting idle, or there's not a minute when you're not thinking or doing something which is related to that particular restaurant, right?
Okay.
It's just, and now we have two, we don't have just one, right?
Yeah.
Now I have the South Place also. So between this one and that one, it's not 1 minute where you can check your phone or say hi to Instagram or anything of that sort format. Because just into it so much, because there's constantly something to solve.
Wow.
Right? So, so if people think they can open a restaurant just because they can cook, I think they should rethink it then.
So, how do you manage to bring out, the consistency in the food on everyday basis?
So, this has taken a while. It doesn't come easy. I think this is a constant drilling to the supply team and the kitchen team, consistently saying that this is how it's done. Having good experienced chefs who sit on top of, all the other junior chefs is very important, right? Because they've done it year after year after year. And they help train the junior chefs to do it exactly as you want it. So once in a week or 10 days, I try to run what is known as the pass in the kitchen, where the order comes, you call out the order, and the order comes to you and then you send it out. So in doing that, you check for portion sizes, check for consistency. Once in a while, you put a spoon and check the taste. And when you do this, you realize that is it being consistent, is it not being consistent?
So who does this? Who does this taste?
The chef does it.
Oh, the chef.
And once in a week, 10 days, I do it.
You are there everywhere then. So you basically test all the dishes that's there on the menu.
At least 50% of the major dishes. Like, you don't have to check the fries. The fries will be okay, right? But if it's a steak, you have to check, whether the sauce is right. You have to check if it's, especially our pastas are very well, sought after. Our burgers are very well sought after. So is the patty tasting right? So when he's making it, you tell him, make a small portion. I want to taste. So then you taste it on that basis. Or you do a blind tasting. Me and the partners will just go sit in the restaurant and place the order without letting the kitchen know that it's our order. So then you know that, because if you're standing there, they might do it right.
Okay.
But if you're on the other side and you're a guest, are they sleeping up?
Okay.
90% they don't.
So do you have mystery?
Yes.
So we have in our business,
Yeah.
we have mystery.
Mystery. Oh, right. So your mystery is us only. And the service team is warned if they find out that it's for us, then the service team gets it.
Yeah, that's true.
So once a week, twice a week, we will eat quietly and we'll order different dishes. If there are new dishes we've put in on the menu once a month, we try to taste them to see if, the consistency is there. And rest assured, that's how you do it. And you have to be on top of it. I think the only way to make a good restaurant work is if you as a owner or, as the person who's responsible for the restaurant is there all the time.
Wow, you have to be
You have to be there. At least in all the good places that I have seen, the people are always there, right? You have to be there.
Full-time job, right?
It is. But I wasn't looking for less also, no?
So you knew what you are getting into.
A little bit, not this much, but well, okay.
So how many of you run this place?
So we are 2 operating partners and I have 14 more partners financially.
Oh my God. Okay.
But yeah, so that's another part.
But you are the front.
Yeah, I am the front. This was my idea, my baby. Everyone bought into it. The other operating partner is again a colleague of mine. He was a senior in hotel management. We go back to Hyderabad days.
Okay.
And he was looking to do something. So he joined about 3 months or 4 months ago. He recently joined. But till he was there, it was just me in the front. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So they are more like, the back end and they are not involved in the operation.
So the financial partners are not involved in the operations at all. I prefer it that way. And I think Sridhar is my other operating partner, is part of the daily, everyday, managing. He takes over the evenings. I do the mornings. That's how we sort of balance it out.
Okay. Another question with regard to the chef, So you select the chef before opening a restaurant?
Yes.
Or the chef comes in later?
No. So we started out, so I don't know how it's done everywhere else. I'll tell you my story. I started out hiring a very young team, a young chef with his young friends, right? Who we thought we will give a push to, saying that, look, even young people can do it. But like I told you, there's a generational problem there. Right? So after 4 months of this team working, 5 months of this team working, one day all of them disappeared.
The main chef and everybody?
Everybody. So out of 7 chefs or 8 chefs, 1 chef was standing. Everyone else had disappeared.
Oh my God.
Right? And while I had learned in the first 2 months that this was maybe not such a great decision to hire young people, but they were talented people. And you hope that talent will overcome irresponsibility. That's not the case. I think you need to, so now when I rehired a team, I have people with families, senior people, people who, take their job seriously, people who, they may not be, they might not have worked in Michelin star restaurants, but they're consistent, they're dependable, and they take ownership. And I think that's right. So the recipes are by these young chefs that we had.
Okay.
But the new team, the senior team, follows the recipes to the tea. That's how we maintain the consistency.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Nice. But yeah.
Wow.
With the South place, we actually, because we had learnt our lesson, we already hired a senior chef. You hire the chef when you start forming the menu, because you will form a menu with the strengths of what the chef can lead.
Okay.
Right? I can't say, okay, I want all this. Or ye chef aake kar dega. No, you play to the chef's strengths, and that's when, there is a lot more, the food gets better and better because you're playing to the chef's strength. That's what he likes to do. So when he's doing something, or he or she is doing something they like to do, the food turns out far better.
Yeah, that is true.
Right. So they come in at planning stage when you're planning a restaurant, and they give their inputs on, we should have this on the menu, we should have this on the menu. And that's how, you build. And then they build their own teams.
Oh, okay. So they, okay. At least
So-
that part that's
So
taken care of.
everyone is run through by the partners. We do a tasting of everyone's hands. And if we are not happy, we tell the chef we are not happy with this person. Because in the end, these junior chefs will have to work someday when the chef is not there. If he's on leave, if he's, unavailable. At that time, you don't want to deal with people you don't feel are 100%. So they bring in the others, or you interview everybody else, but the chef and us decide together what is the team that will stay.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Oh.
And then the chefs, if the chef feels that no, someone has potential and someone's going to do more, chef tells us that give us 3 months. I will work with this person and I will grow this person. So that happens. Right. So while they are chef's team, they also know that when chef is not there, senior chef is not there, they have to take over and they have to manage the place. Right.
Okay. Okay.
So
what about then? They assure that the consistency of the food comes through, and
So you have to do that trial also. One day you tell the chef, don't go into the kitchen. Sit with us.
you let the team do it, right? Yeah. When it,
That's what I said. There's so many things to think about and do, but it all comes together. Somehow, somewhere it comes together.
also, you had no idea running this place, right? How did you manage to, was it always like, you were learning thing? It was a learning curve?
So I was lucky. I had good friends who are in the business. Some of it was learned from them. Some of it was learned sitting and observing in, I spent nearly half my life after my working hours sitting in bars, right? So sadly, I'll come back to that. Sadly, I don't do that at all anymore. But right, so observing when you were sitting as a guest also, right? How it works, what happens, what doesn't happen. A lot of things experienced people teach you, right? Like when I chased the young team to the senior team, the senior team taught me a few things, saying that we should work like this. And,
Okay.
it really helps. They're taking ownership and they're not hesitant to tell you that this is how it works. Some of it is from my experience of, being in hotel management. I think the basics don't change, right? You know how a kitchen works, you know how an order comes in, all of that. And like I said, some friends who tell you what are the technologies that have come in, what you can use, how you can work around that. Excise license, how do you do, where do you get?
Nearly the next question. Because it's such a daunting thing, I feel, when you think of the licenses and all that. So do you navigate that?
No, so I was very lucky. I have good friends, people who own very large breweries, who've been in the business for 10, 15 years. And I just had to reach out. And the good part about this industry is that people help, right?
Very nice.
Which was a surprising thing, but I think that's a Bangalore culture also. Even in my earlier startups, I think startup culture is also very helpful. So here, people help. Everyone, I think everyone understands that there is enough for everyone to go around, right? I mean, we're a population of 1 billion after all. So no one is saying, as long as you're differentiated from them, and you're not doing what they are doing. I think if I was opening a brewery, my brewery friends would not have helped. But the fact that I was opening a tap room, which would serve their beer, they helped. So, right, you understood from them, how do you go about getting a license? In fact, this friend was kind enough to come and sit with me on the negotiations to get the license, all of that, right? And once you get into it, then it's easily navigatable. First 1.5 months.
This you're making it sound so easy. I thought this is the most daunting thing to begin with.
No. So you also in your team need to have one person who you can trust implicitly, who will manage this for you, right? The sign-off is yours, but the connections, the conversations are with him. Purely because also the excise, the police generally don't like to speak to women owners. They're more comfortable, addressing things at a more junior, lower level. So you have one person who represents all this inside your team and they take care of everything. So I was lucky to have that one person from day one. So who's a local Bangalore growing up boy. So he manages most of it for me.
Okay.
Right. And for him also, he didn't come from this industry. He used to work with me in my fresh pet food business as the logistics manager. So he quit a year after I quit, and he wanted to join, and he joined. And then I told him, this is something, I trust you with it. Will you take it up? And he did. So, you know, people like that, that's what builds a team. I think people who are willing to take responsibility, very important to have. And people you can trust, especially in the liquor business.
Yeah.
There has to be a lot of trust.
Right.
Yeah.
So how is the restaurants business segmented as, you know, and where does your concept fit in?
Okay. So I think Bangalore has gone crazy with breweries. There are, I think, 100+ breweries. Then there are fine dine restaurants. Then there are casual restaurants. Then there are resto bars. So many formats.
Okay.
I don't think I categorized myself into any of these. Okay. I think the South Indian, yes, we said it'll be a fine dine. We don't, we're slightly elevated from the Nagarjunas of the world where it's a little more casual. You know, we give you an ambience of a 5-star, but the pricing of a 3-star, 4-star place. So you get that service, that ambience. Food is, of course, very, very, I mean, in South India, I think food is the concentration. So, so we do that. But I think for the bar, it was, like I said, a place where I would like to go.
Okay.
Not loud, very ambient, good service, good food, good drinks. That was the whole ethos of what I was building, right? And where does it fit in? I don't know. Is it a bar? It's not technical. I mean, bars also have changed their definition over the years, right? But technically, these were the bars that used to be there in a generation of, you know, earlier generation where you said you're going to a bar, which meant you were dressing fancy. You were, you were sitting at the bar and having your cocktail.
Yeah.
Some part of that,
Okay.
I think, is what I wanted to bring in, right?
Okay.
Where it felt good to go to a bar. You know how you see in the sitcoms or the movies, after they finish work, they go to the bar, their local bar, have their few beers.
So this is in the sitcom, I would say maybe the Sex and the City, those kind, and that generation.
Yeah.
But coming to Bangalore, when you say bar, I would think in my mind there's like that deep.
Sarthi Bar, yeah. And Sarthi Bar is beautiful, nothing against it. I love to go to Sarthi Bar, right? So yeah, exactly, right? That's why I can't call it a bar anymore, right? That's why I say a craft beer tap room, because also I serve 14 beers so well. Craft beer tap room. But essentially, like you got it right? It was a place where, you know, you see in Sex or you see in Friends or you see in most movies, right? People finish their work, they go to this place, they know the people behind the bar, they know that the owner is there, they pat the owner on the back, have a drink, have a few drinks, go home. That was the idea, right? Okay. That was the place.
That was what you wanted to create.
Yes, right? And that is, when I say bar, that is what I mean. I don't mean our little round the corner bars. So maybe my tagline should be bringing bars back into fashion.
Yeah. or giving a facelift for the bar that existed earlier in India.
So yeah, so that's that. So I don't know where we fit in. There are so many categories. I haven't created that category yet or put myself into a category. I'm saying it's a comfortable place. Come, be yourself, you know, enjoy and great ambience, great food, great drinks, have your few beers after your working hours and go.
Nice.
So I don't want to be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
I'm happy where I'm sitting.
Marketing is a huge, I feel is one of the key thing for a business.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So how do you market yourself?
So we went through a whole bunch of things. First we said, why should we market? Word of mouth should drive everything, especially in the food and beverage business, right? Then we realized with the number of places that are opening, it's very easy for somebody to slip up and not mention you, right? So then we started out with your social media, being there consistently, doing all of that. I still believe traditional media works better, reaching out to people directly, posters, emailers. I am from a traditional ad background, so I still like that. But what we have seen is that we've upped our Instagram, quotient. We've hired a much better agency right now that's giving us, what people call interactive engagement reels and things like that.
Yes.
And that seems to be working.
Okay.
What has much bigger worked is having a PR agency for us, actually. Right? They know where to talk about you. They know where to put you. They know what type of influencers to call, right? Earlier, we were just any influencer who said they wanted to cover us, we would like, okay. And then this agency came and said, no, let's see who should cover what and why they should cover it, right? And that helped quite a bit to sort of further our, even now, I think 50% of Whitefield doesn't know we exist. But that said, the rest of the 30% that has learned about us in through these things. So I think in the food, while it's a very noisy, busy place on Instagram to make a mark with the number of restaurants that do something every day, you still need to be part of that noise if you want to be, sort of there. And I think for us, it'll move now to doing more corporate B2B sort of marketing, because we are in the middle of ITPL, which is surrounded by 500 offices.
Okay.
Right? So we pretty much run on office crowd. So for us now, it'll be more a direct sales channel that we are building out to sort of keep the place going. And over the years, I think we will build out into a place where people will want to go because it's the bar. At least that's the plan.
What do you think, how much is the ambience important for the restaurant success?
I think depends on what type of place you want to build. Right now, let's say you want to build a place which appeals to the young ones, cheap, easy food, quick service, that kind of thing, then ambience doesn't matter that much, because they're coming there for the deal you're giving them. They're not coming there to sit and enjoy a drink. They're coming there because they know they will get value for money over there, right? You're doing a brewery, right? Now there you want people to come because also brewery formats are very large, right? You want to create an ambience that is different from another brewery, right? So you create these large spaces, and ambience is important there because you have to look different. You can't just have one garden area with chairs and tables. Then that's not working, because you're charging a premium because you're a brewery, right? You want them to drink in a happy place also,
right?
Like us. For me, ambience was very important. I did not want it to be over the top. A lot of restaurants nowadays are going over the top. You'll see extra fancy stuff happening. I personally get intimidated in places like that, right? When I see too much jazz happening, too much, things hanging from here, doing this, doing that. I'm like, okay, but let's concentrate on the food.
And the drinks.
Yes, very much, the drinks. So then when we said, what are we serving up and what are we putting out there? We said we're putting out great craft beers. Okay, so beer is anyways an informal drink. We have cocktails, we have fun cocktails, but beer was the focus. And we had pub food, right? So essentially we said it should be an ambience that doesn't intimidate, yet it shouldn't look like Rasta Chalta, right? It has to have a little dignity, it has to have a little style, it has to have a little elegance. And that's how we came to do this nice, beautiful black-white wood combination, which is also my favorite combination. So, and a beautiful outdoor place, because Bangalore, you should enjoy the weather. Why should you not?
I know. You have a large space.
Yeah,
right?
so I always was clear that we should definitely have an outdoor space, because very few restaurants have the liberty and luxury to create an outdoor space. We are lucky we have that. Right? So the outdoor space really was something I was sure I wanted pretty much. So ambience is important if you're serving up a certain level of service, certain level of food and charging a premium. Otherwise, then you can do with easy ambience.
How big is your restaurant?
Wow, my restaurant is 10,000 square feet. We can hold about 280 people is what we can serve up at one time. Yeah, that's the bar. The south place is about 7,000 square feet, about 180 people we can serve up at one time. Yeah.
Wow.
And these are small restaurants compared to the others.
I agree. But then
Yeah.
It's not a small one.
It's not small either. Yeah. In retrospect, maybe a 20 people, like I said. Would have been easier to manage.
So like you said, this place is so crowded. Yeah, this space is quite crowded. How do you set yourself apart and
So I think consistency. You have to be consistent, and that is the good part. I think the good thing we are seeing, while a lot of people don't know about us yet, is that we are seeing that the people who know about us keep coming back. So we get a 70% repeat rate, which is huge. And in hospitality, repeat is what says you're a good place or you're not, right? Even in your business, right? In beauty, there's repeat, then you know that you're doing something right. So I think consistency and not moving away from what you started out as a core. I think a lot of places get lost because, let's say, I was arm twisted also quite a bit. If it's not working, like we don't allow children Monday to Friday.
I know, I wanted to skip.
That's because we're in a corporate place. A lot of corporate crowd comes there, right?
But how is that?
Can I be controversial here?
Please be. That's what I want. We should be honest is what.
Okay. 90% of Indian parents do not know how to parent today, right? I get people, I allow children on Saturdays and Sundays, but I get people who will not check their children. Their children will stand on tables. In fact, I have seen a mother put her pamper-laden child on my bar. Okay. Now, if I am a guest, right, and I am at 40s, and like I said, I'm skewed towards the 40s and above. I'm not skewed towards the younger generation at all, right? If I'm there, one, I don't want to see children running about shouting, screaming, or wearing squeaky shoes, or dancing on a table, because next time I might be sitting on that table, right? Two, I want to go out and have an easy evening after a long day at work, right? I want to have a quiet evening. I don't want 10 kacha children going, right? So going away from why did I build the place, right? I build the place for you to come there and feel relaxed and feel at home. Children running around is not going to make you feel that. So, but in the South place, we allow children, and funnily now, because we serve thalis there, it's like a restaurant where you sit and eat. People come with kids and the kids are very much more well behaved. I don't know what.
How is that?
I have no idea what it is. Right? And I think we've gotten a lot of flack saying you don't allow children, you don't allow. But I think every time people it's a beer place, they think it's a brewery. Like a brewery has a lot of place for kids to run. We are not a brewery. We're a tap room and we have a smaller place. So having kids come there and run about doesn't work for us.
Okay.
Right. So that's why I think that is one of the things. And I think we get a lot of appreciation from people like me who like quieter places, saying thank you for not having kids during weekdays. But like I said, you're skewed towards a corporate crowd. You're skewed towards, even for lunch, we get working lunch people who come from office to have lunch. No one at that point in time is wanting kids running about or kids being there.
If you ask me personally also, even I would feel when you go out, you want to have a piece of time.
Correct.
Right? Like that is why we go also. Many a time.
So even, from colleagues, peers, people who run breweries, restaurants, everyone's like, no, you can't cut off that segment. And I was like, okay, did I take a hit on revenue because of that? Yes. A dramatic hit on revenue because of that. Because there were a lot of people who gave us really bad reviews because we didn't allow their children. But that said, did I stick to it? Yeah, I'm sticking to it. Today, there is appreciation. See, people come to us saying, we know we will not get kids here, right? Like I said, if you want to build a brand, you can't be everything to everyone. You have to hold strong and say, no, this is what I stand for and this is what I believe in and this is what the place will be like, right? And we do that. Saturday, Sundays we change because Saturday, Sunday we know that people want to go out with their children on Saturdays and Sundays. So we cater to that on Saturdays, Sundays, but not during weekdays and noon.
So how do you handle bad reviews? Okay. And how do you handle the customers, especially seen with the Google reviews? I can speak about it for 10 minutes, but I would like you to talk about it now.
So in the beginning, I replied to most reviews till all my partners said you should stop. Because I think it was coming off as
rude.
Very. Because I'm not polite. And like I said, most bad reviews were because I didn't allow their children or because, they didn't get a table. Now, in such a place, I need to put my point forth and say, you can't give me a bad review because I don't allow children, right? But when it's a bad review on food, when it's a bad review on drink, then I will pick up the phone and call the guest because it is an experience problem, right? At that point, I have to pick up the phone and call and say, what happened, right? I have to understand it. Can they give me another chance? If they can give me another chance, then I have to take that chance and make it better for them. If they won't give me another chance, I have to take what is given to me, because if somebody's had a truly bad experience, then it's absolutely in their right to write they've had a bad experience, right? So at that point, when it's a genuine problem, we have to take action. So I'll tell you what happened. We had a party from a company, 20 people, youngsters who were given a free hand to spend as much as they wanted in the name of the company. Now they came in, it was a package which was unlimited food, unlimited drink.
Okay.
They ordered beers which they did not finish. They broke glasses, they were loud. They spilled food on sofas.
These were working men?
These were working people.
Yeah.
It was a young team, like I said. Okay. Now the fact that they ordered and they kept ordering because they could order, not because they wanted to drink, makes me very angry. So I finally had to stop. I said, no, this package is done. Please finish the beers on your table. I will send more beers. And please finish the food on your table. I will send more food. But I will not keep sending it when there is 10, 12 glasses of beer lying at the table. I'm not sending more beer. Right? They sat.
How do you dare to go and say that? No, because really,
right? So they sat in front of us and gave us 10 bad reviews saying nobody should come here.
Okay.
And those reviews I really replied to. And it came to a point where the HR of that company had to call me and say, can you please take down these reviews because you mentioned the name of the company. And I said, no, I won't, because when your people were sitting here and creating a nuisance and writing bad reviews when they got great service, great food, and they were wasting food, right? And the good part is I took pictures. So I could post pictures and send the pictures to the HR saying, you've sent a team like this. This team is ruining the reputation of your company because they came on a company booking, right? They didn't come as youngsters. They came at a company booking. And the HR had to apologize on their behalf. And categorically, that particular team is not allowed in our place anymore, right? If they've tried to make bookings, we've refused to make bookings for them. Sometimes you have to take that very strong stance and say, you will not tolerate it because, okay, you're in hospitality, but I don't even guests have to be responsible, right? There has to be responsibility on both sides, right? And these are tough calls to take, but you take them because, you know, it stops from it happening again.
Yeah.
Right? And people start taking you seriously as a place also. They know that this is not a place you can go and be unruly, or this is not a place where you can go and get away with everything. Right? Because most places would not have done this. They would have said, Jane do. Right? Paisa de rahe hain, jane do, jane do. Why? I mean, why are we encouraging bad culture?
You are.
Would we do something like that if we went anywhere? No, we wouldn't. But someone's got to teach the younger generation to behave.
That is true. That is true. That's true. So another thing, you know, what say the outside world doesn't know or feel it's something easy when it comes to running a restaurant?
Oh, like I said, it is an everyday challenge. It is a dozen moving parts. It is your eyes, ears, everywhere at all times, right? Front end, you know, you have to look at housekeeping, you have to look at service staff's grooming, you have to look at, you know, glassware is clean, you have to look at plates are clean, you have to look at when a person comes in, are they greeted, not greeted, are they seated, not seated. It goes on and on and on. Your eyes have to be everywhere. In a kitchen, how much wastage is happening? Are they cutting stuff properly? Are they not cutting stuff properly? In your bar, are they pouring properly? Are they wasting beer? Are they wasting drinks? Are they over pouring? Are they under pouring? Your eyes and ears have to be everywhere. If you are not willing to give 200% of yourself to this business, don't get into this business. It's a tough, tough, tough business. And that's why I think it's become a norm for restaurants to fail so easily in, you know, in India, because People think it's fun, fancy, let's open a restaurant. No. And then they leave it to managers. And, some get lucky and have great managers, but some don't, because then the managers run to the ground because they don't have ownership. Right? So I think this is, the outside world has to understand that if you're getting into it and you want to make it a success, you need to be standing there 24/7.
This is the advice you have for our viewers.
Have a few partners, take certain responsibilities. Each of you take one part of the responsibility and do that responsibility to the best. You must have that.
I'm a great movie buff, or I'm a Netflix binge watcher.
Yeah.
So, this is not on Netflix. I don't know where it was. Have you watched the
Apple TV Bear?
The Bear, the show. So there, they portray kitchen as some high pressure zone,
It
Do you relate to that?
It becomes a high pressure zone. What is different from Bear to here, and why restaurants in India are very different from most restaurants there. And now their culture has come to India, and where chefs own the restaurant, right? When a chef owns a restaurant, it will be high energy, because a chef by nature is a very high strung human, right? Because there are too many things that they have to set right, and everything has to be to perfection, right? Even 1 minute more or 1 minute less or one leaf extra on that plate is difficult. So yes, it is stressful. Even our kitchens, when we suddenly get a burst of people which we are not expecting, or something comes up, it gets very, very high energy. There are times when you think someone's going to throw something at someone, but I think people manage to keep their cool. So it is a lot like that when it is full, exactly how the Bear shows it. Only that we don't have a high-strung, chef owner. So there is a slight bit of calm over there.
Okay. Wow.
But yes, it does get like that. Definitely gets like that.
So, do you train your staff to send some for training for keeping themselves at calm, composed?
No, we don't actually. That's a good idea. We should.
I'm just imagining pressure.
So, what happens is that like I said, now we have experienced people. They've worked in this environment. So when new people come in, let's say freshers, we don't hire freshers in our place purely because we know how much it will take. I think freshers are much more easily inculcated into cultures if they go to the 5-star hotels or the larger hotels, because there they come in as trainees, right? They witness it, but they are not into it. But in a smaller establishment like ours, we can't get a fresher who will stand by and watch. We need everybody to be acting, right? So if a fresher came into our place, I think 2 days they would quit and go.
Then you're almost relating to the Bear.
Yeah, exactly. You have to, right? I told you, it is like that. It definitely is like that. Just the difference is that we don't have a chef owner. That's it.
Before we wrap up,
yes.
Okay, I have some rapid questions.
Okay.
Which I will look
done.
And then I'll let you know.
Yeah.
So, a rapid question for you would be, what's your signature dish in your restaurant?
Our pastas. They're in-house, handmade pastas. They are the best.
And one restaurant that you admire? Of course, not the bar.
I like Toit very much. And one of my favorite Toit because beer, right? And one of my favorite restaurants in Bangalore from the day I came to Bangalore has been Treat. Consistent food for now 14-15 years I've been eating their food, and it tastes exactly the same. And every bite is a wow in your mouth.
Do you still go to other restaurants?
Not now. See, that's what I said. I was spending half my life in bars earlier. Now, sadly, I just want to go home. Very rare that I get time or inclination to get out in India or in Bangalore. But when I go abroad for holidays, like I was in New York and Scotland, I think in 5 days in Scotland, I went to 18 places. And in 5 days in New York, I went to 10 places. Also because in New York, I twisted my ankle, so less. But I do, because there is a lot to be learned when you are sitting in, outside of India and sitting in restaurants. A lot to be seen, difference in culture, what they're doing well, what they're doing. So it does make sense. Sure, I think my routine and my, just being in this space doesn't allow me.
Okay, dine-in or delivery?
Dine in always.
And sweet or spicy?
Spicy. Hyderabad.
Oh, okay.
Never take spicy out of our lives.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Yashaswini. This was fun. It was like chatting with a friend. So it was lovely. And while I don't do this often, it was fun to do.
I enjoyed the show.
Yeah.
And I hope our viewers enjoyed the show. And that brings us to the end of this inspiring conversation with Arpita Ganesh. Her journey is a true reminder that reinvention is always possible with courage, clarity, and a whole lot of heart. If you have enjoyed the show, don't forget to follow Women in Business for more real stories of women who are building, dreaming, and daring. Until next time, I'm Yashi. Take care.